That's right. Let's do this. Let's start this. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to your Bedroom Super Producer podcast. We are your hosts. My name is JT.
My name is BK.
And in this podcast, we always try to analyze some of the masters across all genres. And today we certainly have a duo that are masters at their craft. They have a body of work that speaks for itself. And BK, why don't you introduce, pardon my French, these two lads to our audience?
Well, this week, very special week. We have, as you said, a very special electronic duo / producers, very unique individuals from the UK. They're funky, they like rock, they like psychedelic, they're ambient, they're DJs. I could call them even the pioneers of big beat and the breakbeat genre. None others than Tom Rowlands and Ed Simmons, or Simons, I don't know how to say it, from the Chemical Brothers this week. So a very interesting subject full of gear, mayhem shows, big beats, distortion, 808s, all kinds of mayhem.
So let's start this from the beginning. Where and what was the first song that you heard from the Chemical Brothers?
The first song I heard from the Chemical Brothers, it has to be probably on the first album, Exit Planet Dust, and it was probably Chemical Beats. Yeah, that was my first song.
Yeah, one of their classic bangers. On my side, I think it was from Dig Your Own Hole, and I'd have to say that it was Block Rockin' Beats.
Oh, yes.
At that time, I mean, from the UK, you had all these incredible acts that were fusing, acid house, breakbeats type stuff. And I guess what struck me the most was the funky side of the Chemical Brothers back then. What about you?
I liked the fact that I always loved electro. I always loved hip hop and rock and roll and metal. And I love the fact how they could bring that DJ energy and those breakbeats and still mix them with stuff that were a little bit slower too and more ambient and stuff. And I love how their tempo was always up there with the banging stuff, but they could lower it a little bit under 130 and sometimes go 120. And that's what I liked about them. They kept it moving, and it wasn't always too fast or always too slow.
I guess for me, if we're trying to define the sound of the Chemical Brothers, I guess it's that really happy marriage between, like you said, psychedelic, techno, breakbeat, funk, and everything in between. I mean, these guys are not afraid. And as we always try to do in this podcast, we try to come up with, little gems of knowledge that we can take home with us from these incredible acts. And I guess that they are really, really not afraid to try anything and everything, right?
Even fusing like hip hop stuff and like mixing different things. And you can even see that with all the different collaboration that they did with other artists, that they're not afraid to branch out, like you said.
Yeah, especially on the newer projects, they can really show their range in terms of mixing also, where they have super polished tracks and they still have those incredible psychedelic ambient journeys. I mean, they can really do it all. So let's talk about their sound a bit more. For me, they were some of the first ones to really have these incredible in-your-face breakbeats, and then have these super intricate synthesizer lines where that they have crafted those for hours on hours, because you have all of the glitches. You can tell that they ran those analog synths through guitar pedals. And then you have these super witty, like little vocal samples. And finally, they were able to mix all of that up with live instruments, which to me is always kind of hit or miss, especially if you're in the realm of techno, ambient, and all of that. And that makes for a very eclectic, but a sound that really sticks together really well, I guess.
I think their strength was the fact that they were DJs. So the interesting thing when you're a DJ, you can pretty much pick the different types of sound that you like, or what you would have liked to been able to play, or collaboration that you would have liked to have been able to do, and everything, and just put all those together. And they kind of evolved their sound around that fact, and like transforming it into the realm of using the instruments that they heard on those records, using those break beats and those big drum beats and those hip hop beats from records, and mixing it with sampling and twisting the sound and creating their own ambient thing. So you're totally right in saying that their sound is it's a very broad sound, and in a way it permits for them to be they can't ever be boring. You can only be surprised by what they come up with, because they've pretty much shown it from the beginning, from the first EPs that they did. If you take a listen to like 14th Century Sky, like the EP before the first album, Exit Planet Dust, it was already one, like Chemical Beats was right in there in your face with the 808s and the TB303. And then you have that other song that a little bit more like relaxed ambient, and then you have like something that's more hip hop on the other side. And so they showed from the get-go that they had very varied taste, and that it was going to be like that, like for the rest of the albums that they were going to make. And they made sure that you couldn't pigeonhole them and to say, this is your style, this is your tempo, and if you diverge from that, then you're not the Chemical Brothers anymore.
Absolutely. And I think that's also a good tip for our audience, is the fact that, sometimes you see people online. We both run big Instagram pages, and we see the young up and coming producers. And sometimes you can tell that these are people that are listening to trap, making trap, for example. And I don't mean to knock on that, because there's so much talent out there. But if you look at the Chemical Brothers, you can absolutely tell that they listen to everything in all genres and from all eras, really. And I think it's important to broaden your horizons. And even us doing this podcast, we try to study from people in all genres and all eras, as I've said. And that way you can really build kind of a lexicon of riffs, sounds, mixing techniques, arrangement techniques, different types of chords, different types of melodies. And so that's really what I get from the Chemical Brothers, is that if they do funk, they'll do funk great. If they want to do like psychedelic rock, they'll do it great also. And as you said, on a project, whether it be an EP or an album, well, then you can really take your audience on a journey. If your EP is like 5 EDM bangers, well, I mean, the lifespan of such a project might be a bit short. Would you agree with that?
You're doing the same thing pretty much over and over, and at the same time, at the end, they were only human beings, and you get tired of listening, first of all, to the same thing, the same tempo, the same chords. And that's a little bit of the problem that we have today in music, is that music is so segmented that everything per segment sounds pretty much the same, because it's so specialized. And with the Chemical Brothers, what's interesting, it's difficult to even put them in a category. They're gonna win for best rock video or whatever from like on a year, and they're gonna win for like best hip hop track another year with Chaos or whatever. So I think it's, like you said, it's important to have a very broad range in terms of what you listen to then to be able to be creative and to be like an innovator, even if you're doing something very, very specialized.
Another thing that strikes me is their ability to always cater to different audiences within an album. If you look, for example, at Dig Your Own Hole, you have, the like the club and dance floor bangers like Block Rockin' Beats, and then
Well, Electro Bank, or
yeah,
well, there's a lot of electro in that. Don't Stop the Rock, Dig Your Own Hole. The first tracks on Dig Your Own Hole, Blood Rockin' Beats, Dig Your Own Hole, Electro Bank, they're
yeah, that's it.
pretty intense.
So yeah, I mean, you can tell that they paced that album to make sure that the club clientele was served right away, and then they delve into the more intricate and psychedelic sounds that they also want to offer to the public. And what I'm trying to say is there's really a method to each of these albums. Like there's a method to the madness in terms of doing what they feel will help them financially, and then do what they really, really like. I guess maybe that's not the way they would want me to put it. I guess they have all of these different genres inside of themselves, and they want to share all these sounds. But there's what I'm trying to say is there's a way to keep the broader audience intrigued, and then doing the more experimental stuff. And that way, there's a healthy balance between commercial success and innovation.
Like you said, I think they did it on purpose to have the beginning of the albums to start to be it like a real, like an intro, like a really like in your face, so that their fans, and I think that's where they were at that time when they did Exit Planet Dust and Dig Your Own Hole. But with Dig Your Own Hole, it's a perfect example. Like you said, the beginning is very high intensity, very club oriented, and then you start to have these songs that are like more what they would want to do, or more where they're diverging a little bit with Setting Sun, that song with Noel Gallagher from Oasis. That's something that we didn't see much back then, like the collaboration between that indie rock and that house techno scene. And then even as you get further in the album, you get stuff that's a little bit more slower and stuff that's more esoteric. Where do I begin? The Private Psychedelic Realm. So it's very interesting to see how the sound evolves on an album, and it's very cool for me to see that they're different songs, but everything fits together. They didn't write the song 2 years ago or 4 years ago and then just patched it together. Everything, it kind of makes sense together, even if it's with the diversified like styles of songs.
Yeah, and I even heard, I guess it was Tom. Is that the guy with the glasses, or is it the other way around? Yeah,
Tom,
he was saying,
tall blonde guy.
Yeah, exactly. He was saying the exact same thing in an interview. He was saying, whenever we start an album, we have this kind of this aesthetic that we want to carry through the whole album, but we also want people to start somewhere and end up somewhere completely different, And I guess that's exactly a reflection of their approach to creating a full-length album. So let's talk gear a little bit, because I know they have one of the craziest collection out there. What do you know about the stuff that they use to get their sounds?
I think at the beginning it was pretty simple. I think everything was based at the beginning. If you take a look at like old shows where when they were rocking like old shows, it was more, I think, mostly samplers, Akai sampler, MPCs, maybe S3000, S6000, something like that. A couple of keyboards, not that many at the beginning. I think their sound was based on the SH101 and Juno 106. Maybe a couple Korg, maybe Monopoly, maybe the MS stuff. So at the beginning it was pretty simple, right? And they would just rock like feed everything into a Mackie mixer and then go from there and do everything live. That's one of the things that's interesting about them, is that yes, they're like electronic music, but they try to, even live, they would use what they use to create the music, and they would use the real sequences and play with the sequences and insert effects on the board and start the sequences live in front of people. So in a way, it's kind of like they're sort of acting like a band. Like they're starting stuff at the same time. Sometimes they make mistakes. Sometimes it's not synced. Sometimes it's not the right delay. Sometimes it's whatever. So you're putting yourself out there kind of like a rock band, you know, some like the bass player is going to make a mistake. The drummer is going to drop a stick or something. So it's not as polished as today, where you just put in your USB stick and your CDJs and it plays. Yes, you're mixing, but it's much safer than having like 5 synth and a drum machine interacting together and having to be in sync for everything to gel and to rock the place. So I think at the beginning it was pretty simple. Now it's much more intricate. I think I was reading an article in the Sound on Sound with their technical guy, and there's a lot more stuff now. I think there's a lot more synths. The 106 probably they still have that. Jupiter 6, Jupiter 8. I'm not sure they're still using the samplers, the Akai as the brain. I think today they're just using computers, probably Ableton or Logic, that shoots out MIDI to everything else.
I think it's actually both. I think the brain now are the basic stems on a Logic system, and then I think they have Ableton doing some other stuff, but on top, like the master is a Logic rig, which was kind of surprising, because syncing up those two.
Well, it's difficult because before they would have probably master clocks that would feed MIDI. Now, since it's with the computers, you probably need a fail-safe system, that, because the problem with computers is that you get jitter. Like, technical people understand what jitter is, and jitter is that your master clock is gonna vary ever so slightly. So if everything is in the computer, it's not really that important because everything is gonna vary together, right? If you're feeding that master clock to external gear, MIDI, like 17 external keyboards or sequencer that need to be synced, it can become an issue, and you can get these little delays from instrument to instrument. So if you're starting a sequence from the computer, you could have the sequence slightly delayed, the arpeggio on, I don't know, a Jupiter or whatever, it's going to be slightly delayed. So I was reading that the tech guy had to resort to all sorts of nonsense just to be able to re-trigger everything or to realign everything in real time during the show if something would happen. So a pretty intricate use of technology on the Chemical Brothers side.
Yeah, I guess there's really not another duo that'll take as much gear as they do on stage.
No, they take a lot of risk. A lot of risk.
That's really cool, because they are absolutely open to basically making mistakes live, and that's not something in this era of auto-tuning vocals live and all of that. There's not a whole lot of people who are still open to having happy accidents on stage, you know?
The reason they do that is that they want to inject that humanness and that those mistake-prone sometimes accident that sometimes happen. They want to do that, and it's a way to have the music a little bit less cold and to bring back that human like emotion back into the music. Even though they're all machines, you can still kind of have a hybrid of the instrument kind of plays itself, but still you're influencing it and putting some non-linear human mistakes and interaction into it, and also you're opening yourself up to creating magic and to sometimes having something totally wrong going, and then just saying, well, I'm just going to go with it, that's an interesting note, or that's an interesting change, let's just milk that for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 measures and start from there. I think the way their gear is arranged, it's also to be able to free jam on stuff, to be able to keep a sequence running, not having a specific preset or a specific command on the computer that keeps moving forward and in a way playing the stems automatically. They can always stick to something. If they want to stay for an hour on something, they can. If they want to stay just 30 seconds on it, they can. And they decide at like what tempo it is, what pitch it is, when do we switch, when do we not switch, what effect I'm putting in on the sends and the outs. So I think it gives you it's complicated, it can lead to mistakes, but it gives you so much flexibility. And at the same time, it's wonderful for the audience because they know that the show that they're seeing, they're probably never going to see it again. It's something that they cooked up in front of us, and that's always special as an audience member.
Absolutely. And I think that, especially in this age of USB DJs, the Chemical Brothers really show what it is to perform their own music. And as you said, I think that there's one on the Mackie mixer basically sequencing and triggering the different loops, while the other guy is more on the filters and the effects, the delays and all of that. And instead of having two guys on the same mixer, one twisting the bass up and down and the other guy just faking it, basically, I think that the people who have this who have an electronic project should look at maybe taking one synth on stage, rigging it up on a laptop with MIDI, and basically just tweaking the filter instead of tweaking, just the filter cutoff on the whole song. This, like as you said, adds these little quirks when you're not necessarily exactly on the tempo while you're doing this this filter sweep that you're doing. And I think that it helps the connection with the audience much more, this human aspect.
Yeah, because people realize that it's not exactly as the song, it's something different. It's a new remix that you're doing live, and it's not quite right, but it's still very raw. So I think they really found a way to put everything together, that including the visuals, of course, that we can talk a little bit more in a couple seconds, bring that together. I think one of the regrets I have from last year, I think they came to Montreal last year and I totally forgot to go, and I think I'm going to regret that for a while.
Yeah, we should have went.
Yeah,
for sure. I've never seen them live, but
the sound is wow.
It's something else. So yeah, great segue to talk about their visuals and their branding, because again, they really have something really unique going, and I'd like to get your take on that.
We've always said that there's an important part to visuals for DJs, right? And absolutely. I think they really found a way. First of all, I think the first part of their branding is that they're not branding themselves as characters. They're branding the band, the group, the Chemical Brothers. And they did this very consciously at the beginning, like not to be in the videos, not to be the stars of the videos. And they make like little appearances in, like, sometimes you see them having a beer in a bar, or sometimes you see them getting out of a car at the beginning or at the end. But if you don't know them, you don't know that it's them, right? And I've always found it very interesting how some bands make it a conscious decision not to have their faces or not to have their personas part of like the visuals, and like let the director do something else and let the video speak for itself, or let the story lead the audience to somewhere else, you know. And
Absolutely.
and the second part, it was really the alliance that they made with, first of all, incredible featuring that they've been doing with all types of different artists. Like we said, they're very varied in terms of music, and also the alliance with the various directors that they've made over the years. I think that's like the main part of their branding. If you take something like the videos for like Electrobank, directed by Spike Jones. I think everyone knows Spike Jones. Or the Noel Gallagher video, the "Let Forever Be" the song with, like, it was Michel Gondry. So those alliances with all those like famous directors, I think it gave them like every video is kind of special, kind of a little bit like you take Björk is a lot like that. Every video that she made is very like, it's kind of like a work of art. Also, the White Stripes were like that, and strangely enough, the White Stripes and Björk also had a lot of videos directed by Spike Jones and Michel Gondry. So I think that's the main part of the attractiveness to the visuals. And of course, they managed to take that and to translate that on their big screens and all the visuals that they use live.
Another thing that really strikes me is that they've never changed their logo, which is one of the most recognizable in the electronic dance music industry. Just the psychedelic, funky font that they used, and again, you know, sometimes you see artists trying to overdo it with the logo, and in their case, just using the letters for the words Chemical Brothers was enough to carry them through 30 years. So let that sink in. If you're listening out there, you don't need to have what I would call a wallpaper with several drawings in your logo and, you know, a super fancy font. Sometimes it's just a matter of bringing it back to the words and using something very simple. And as you've said, they partnered up with a bunch of different visual artists. And then the branding experience is using, you know, these new visuals, but with the same logo. And for each of the projects, if you look at the cover arts, they were going into drastically different color palettes, but everything always stuck together and really gave a different feel per album, which I really like. And also the aesthetics were always very consistent in terms of keeping that air of mystery while also having it psychedelic. A lot of throwbacks to the early 70s graphic design stuff with not as many colors. You could tell that they are borrowing from old school printing methods. So it's really interesting. I think there's a very definite strategy behind the way they brand and basically bring to life the visuals of each of their projects. And where everybody was probably doing, you know, high-tech, monsterish stuff in the electronic scene, they were doing something completely different that felt like a grassroots folk rock project, basically. So I really like that.
True. Question for you: what's your favorite as a visual fan? What's your favorite video?
Well, yeah, I was gonna ask because I can't remember the title of the song, but which is the one with the train that's basically infinitely going forward?
Oh, that's Star Guitar.
Well, that to me was groundbreaking.
Yeah.
When it came out, you know, it did the rounds. People were saying, "Oh, they use this super avant-garde technology to create that train that never stops," and then you basically are on the rooftop of the train and you see all of the different stations. And I have still to this day no idea how they managed to do that, but it's really, really something. What about you?
Yeah, I like Star Guitar a lot, especially that, well, it's another Michel Gondry classic. What I really loved about Star Guitar is that it's linked to the visual is linked to the tempo, and it's also linked to the elements of the song, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what's totally awesome. So sometimes you see the hi-hats coming in like super strong, and you see like telephone poles exactly at the same place as the hi-hats, or the kick comes in and there's a house that starts repeating at the place where the kick is. And so yeah, it was pretty like avant-garde back in those days that to have it like a one cut chop the train and to have it like really mimic the music. I found it very 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 interesting. Aside from Star Guitar, one that I really like, I think The Test is one that I really like. The Test by Dominique. It's
Hmm.
the one where there's it's that girl that like's on the beach, and then she jumps in the water, and then she has this huge whale that passes over her. There's they really have strange ideas for videos, and that I always like strange ideas for videos.
I also liked one of their most recent ones because I have to admit they fell off my radar several years ago, probably 10 years ago. But what's the Got to Keep On one?
Yeah, I got to keep on.
Yeah,
That's Michel Gondry again.
yeah, I could tell because there's kind of a around the world feel to it, but then it's much more polished, and then the dancers are amazing. They all look like this incredibly eclectic cast, and they bust some moves. I gotta say they. Plus, it felt like they were going back to some of their roots with the cleaner, funky stuff.
Yeah, I think they
Um,
brought some of the old stuff back for the newest release. Well, the from 2019, I think.
yeah, exactly. It made me want to go back to listening to more Chemical. But other than that, researching the episode, I realized I had never heard the album Further,
Oh no,
on
okay,
which
that's a pretty
no,
good
and
album.
yeah, I feel like it's probably my favorite one. The
Yeah,
way
it's
the cohesiveness is there,
yeah,
it
it's
really feels like a tightly knit project.
yeah, like
And the song,
everything comes in like it's very gradual. It's very well, the fade in and fade outs of different instruments is very well made. If you listen to a song like Escape Velocity or um, Swoon, also it's not like hard hitting like right away like it was before. Everything takes a little bit of time to get in there, and once it starts, the like the kick, the bass, everything just like envelops your head, and it's strange. But some of the songs on Further, you listen to them and you kind of, it's as if the bass sometimes it's from the front and sometimes it's a little bit from the back, as if they played with the like a binaural field with the bass. It seems to envelop your head in a strange way. So it's good. Listen to it again. It's really weird when you listen to it with headphones. It's the way it's pumping. It's as if it was your heart pumping. It's really weird.
I'll listen to it back again tonight and pay attention to that. But yeah, I mean, Swoon is a beautiful, beautiful song. I really like it. And so we've talked about what they use, how they produce, how they put together shows, how um, they put together their brand and group image together. What else can we learn from the Chemical Brothers, in your opinion? Especially if you look at their 30-year run, which was very, very, very successful, I might add. I think they had 5 number one albums, especially at the beginning of their careers.
I heard I was watching an interview with them, and they said that when they had their number one songs, like I think Block Rock and Beats, when it went to number one in '96 or '97, um, they said they were super happy that it went to number one until they realized that they they were higher than the Spice Girls, and that's when they they knew that They had something. When you dethrone the Spice Girls, and God knows that in those days the Spice Girls were it, especially in the UK. Well, I think you're onto something, and especially if it's electro, you're you're doing pretty good. What else can we learn? Well, I think what we can learn, I think we said it at the beginning. Um, it's I think the thing that's most important about their sound and how they make music is that I don't think they're trying to copy people. And I don't even think that they're trying to. We talked about the fact that at the beginning they were arranging their albums in a certain way. And I think the further they went along, the further they would try to be very organic and to really try to translate exactly what was in their mind and where they were at musically, um, for their albums as they went along. And I think you can really see it because the albums are very different. And some of them have weird sounds, some of them have more classic sounds, some of them have evolved in different ways. And I think it was a very conscious decision to just like keep going and not ask yourself too many questions, not overthink things. Because I think it's when you ask yourself, oh, does this sound too much like, or does this sound too much like Prince? Or that's when you start making mistakes. That's when you start rewriting things that you shouldn't rewrite because they were raw and they were pure at the beginning. And now you're changing it and rechanging it and rechanging it. So I think that's one of the things we can learn from them is that like keep keep moving and try not to be like everyone else. You're already being influenced by the fact that you listen to their songs 1,000 times. Like make music for yourself and not necessarily to copy a specific section of a song or like the concept of an album. Like make your own concept and your influences are gonna come out in a way like anyways because you've been listening to so much music.
It's eerie how much you just answered the questions I was asking you off air before the show, as far as how to approach production for the EP. Because if you guys don't know, we are working on some music right now, and we first wrote, you know, the melodies and the chords and all of that, and now we're more into the production aspect of things. And production is really something where you can get lost. You know, you can approach a chord progression so many different ways in terms of sound design, layering different sources of sound. And it's really, really easy to say, well, it does not work. This, and then, as you said, try to rewrite stuff because the production is getting in the way of the music. Yeah. So on that note, BK, point us to a few great Chemical Brothers songs that our audience can start to digest if they don't really know the body of work, which is, again, colossal. There's so many different things. Where should people go to get acquainted with the brothers?
If you don't know the Chemical Brothers, usually I would say go back at the beginning and listen to stuff like Exit Planet Dust. For me, Exit Planet Dust is my favorite album. It was my first album. I remember walking the streets of Montreal and skateboarding the streets of Montreal with that album in my head, and I think I did it for years. So I would say Exit Planet Dust is a good place to start. Dig Your Own Hole has an incredible energy with some very good ambient stuff at the end. If you only want to listen to one album and you want to get like a big pictures of what the Chemicals are, I would suggest to go with they have a compilation, a 2 CD compilation called Brotherhood. And there's a lot of good stuff on Brotherhood. All the good songs are there. They remastered some stuff. They redid some edit on some stuff. The second CD is mostly DJ stuff, like they call it. The songs are electronic battle weapons that they have, and they have like 10 battle weapons on there. So it's pretty cool to hear how they think about like DJing and everything. So I would recommend Brotherhood, and I think you're all set. And then dig into what you like more and decide on which album the song that you liked the best is, and listen to that album, and just go back with today with the internet and Spotify. I think we're in a lucky era where we can listen to everything at the same time, and it's incredible to discover these artists again.
That's great advice. I mean, I hadn't even realized that Brotherhood was basically a best of, and I'll certainly go back to that as well. There's also a myriad of live shows on YouTube, and if you want to get ideas to brand your beat videos or whatever you're doing on social media to brand yourself, I think that there's a wealth of different influences, visual influences that you can take from their visuals on stage. It's really something else.
All right, guys. So I think we went around the whole Chemical Brother question today. I think get inspired by them, listen to their tracks, and I'm sure going to keep listening to them. I think I listened to 2 albums today, and I'm still going to continue on. So have a great week. Keep making those awesome beats. Get inspired by the Chemical Brothers, and we'll see you guys next week.
Do not be afraid to be different.
Very good advice. Peace out, guys.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the podcast, guys. Remember to subscribe if you like what you hear. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. Also, if you want to support us, head on to delicatebeats.com. You can find our serum packs, our contact instruments, and also plenty of freebies if you subscribe to the newsletter. Don't forget to follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and once again, keep making that awesome music.